What started as another ordinary Tuesday at Jefferson High School turned into a moment that would change everything. When a group of bullies decided to mock 15-year-old Maya Richardson's handmade clothes in front of the entire cafeteria, they had no idea they were about to face consequences beyond their wildest imagination. Because Maya's uncle wasn't just any relative. He was Governor Daniel Richardson, and he was about to show up in ways no one expected. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Maya Richardson had always been different from her classmates at Jefferson High School in downtown Sacramento. While other students flaunted designer brands and the latest fashion trends, Maya wore clothes her grandmother carefully stitched together. From fabric remnants and thrift store finds, her wardrobe told stories of late nights spent with Grandma Rose, learning the art of sewing by lamplight in their small apartment on Elm Street. The morning of October 15th began like any other. Maya's alarm clock buzzed at 6:30, and she quietly prepared for school while her grandmother slept in the adjacent bedroom. She selected a burgundy dress that Grandma Rose had completed just the weekend before, a beautiful piece crafted from vintage fabric they discovered at a downtown consignment shop. The dress featured delicate hand-embroidered flowers along the neckline, each stitch representing hours of meticulous work. Maya had lived with her grandmother since she was 7 years old, after her parents died in a car accident on Interstate 80. Grandma Rose, a retired seamstress who had worked for decades in Sacramento's garment district, became Maya's world. Their bond was strengthened through shared meals, homework sessions at the kitchen table, and countless hours spent creating beautiful clothing together. The financial reality of their situation meant that store-bought clothes were a luxury they couldn't afford. Social security benefits and Grandma Rose's small pension covered rent, utilities, and groceries, but left little room for anything else. Maya never complained. She found genuine joy in wearing pieces that carried her grandmother's love in every thread. Walking through the hallways of Jefferson High that morning, Maya carried herself with quiet dignity. She'd learned to navigate the social dynamics of high school by keeping a low profile, focusing on her studies, and finding solace in the school library during lunch periods. Her academic performance was exceptional. She maintained a 4.2 GPA and had already caught the attention of several college recruiters. Maya's closest friend, Zoe Martinez, met her at the entrance to their first period English class. Zoe had transferred to Jefferson High the previous year and immediately gravitated toward Maya's genuine kindness and intelligence. Unlike many of their peers, Zoe appreciated Maya's unique style and often complimented the craftsmanship of her handmade clothes. "That dress is absolutely stunning," Zoe whispered as they took their seats. "The embroidery work is incredible. Your grandmother is so talented." Maya smiled warmly, smoothing the fabric of her skirt. She stayed up until midnight, finishing the flowers. She wanted me to have something special for the college fair today. The college fair was scheduled for the afternoon, and Maya had been looking forward to it for weeks. Representatives from universities across California would be present, and she planned to speak with admissions counselors about scholarship opportunities. Her dream was to study fashion design at the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising in Los Angeles, following in her grandmother's footsteps, but with formal training. As the morning progressed through calculus, chemistry, and world history, Maya felt optimistic about the day ahead. She'd prepared a portfolio of her grandmother's work, along with some pieces she'd designed herself, hoping to make connections that could help her secure financial aid for college. The trouble began during fourth period lunch. Maya and Zoe made their way to the cafeteria, trays in hand, when they encountered a group that had made Maya's life increasingly difficult over the past few months. Led by Brittany Walsh, a senior whose father owned several car dealerships around Sacramento, this group seemed to find entertainment in targeting students they perceived as different or vulnerable. Brittany stood near the center of the cafeteria, with her three closest followers: Jessica Chen, whose mother was a prominent real estate developer; Amanda Foster, daughter of a successful tech entrepreneur; and Sarah Kim, whose family owned a chain of upscale restaurants. These girls represented everything Maya was not: wealthy, connected, and seemingly untouchable within the school's social hierarchy. Maya tried to walk past their table quietly, but Brittany's voice cut through the cafeteria noise with deliberate cruelty. "Oh my God, look what Maya's wearing today," Brittany announced loudly, ensuring nearby tables could hear every word. "Did your grandmother make that from old curtains again?" The comment drew attention from students throughout the cafeteria. Conversations. He paused as heads turned toward Maya, who felt her cheeks burning with embarrassment. She attempted to continue walking, but Brittany wasn't finished. "Seriously, Maya, there are thrift stores that sell actual clothes, you know," Jessica added with a laugh. "You don't have to look like you're wearing a Halloween costume every day." Maya stopped walking, her grip tightening on her lunch tray. Zoe stepped closer, offering silent support, but Maya could feel the weight of dozens of stares from fellow students who had turned to watch the unfolding drama. "At least I'm not walking around in clothes that cost more than most people's rent," Maya replied quietly, her voice steady despite the humiliation coursing through her. "Excuse me?" Brittany stood up from her table, her voice rising with indignation. "What did you just say?" The cafeteria fell into an uncomfortable silence. Even students at the far end of the room had stopped eating to observe the confrontation. Maya realized she'd reached a breaking point. Months of subtle comments and sideways glances had led to this moment. "I said at least my clothes mean something," Maya repeated, louder this time. "Every stitch represents hours of love and care. What do your clothes represent? Your daddy's credit card?" Amanda Foster gasped dramatically. She did not just say that. "You know what, Maya?" Brittany's voice carried across the silent cafeteria. "Maybe if you didn't dress like a homeless person, people might actually want to be friends with you. But instead, you walk around here looking like some charity case, and then you have the nerve to act like you're better than us." The words hit Maya like physical blows. She'd endured months of whispered comments and subtle exclusion, but this public humiliation felt different. The entire cafeteria was watching, some students recording with their phones, others simply staring in uncomfortable silence. "Your clothes are embarrassing," Sarah Kim chimed in. "They're embarrassing to look at, and they're embarrassing for the school. How are we supposed to maintain our reputation when students show up looking like they got dressed at a garage sale?" Maya felt tears threatening to spill, but she refused to give them the satisfaction. She'd learned resilience from her grandmother, who had faced her own share of discrimination and hardship throughout her life. Grandma Rose had taught her to stand tall in the face of adversity, to find strength in her identity rather than shame. "You're right," Maya said, her voice clear and unwavering. "My clothes are different. They're made with love by someone who cares about me more than any designer cares about profit. They're unique, they're beautiful, and they represent something you'll never understand: genuine love and sacrifice." The confrontation had drawn the attention of several teachers who began moving toward the group. But before any adult intervention could occur, Maya made a decision that would change everything. She pulled out her phone and, with hands that shook slightly from adrenaline and emotion, sent a text message to the one person she knew would understand. "Uncle Daniel, I need you." What Maya's tormentors didn't know was that her Uncle Daniel wasn't just any relative. He was Governor Daniel Richardson, elected 2 years earlier on a platform of education reform and anti-bullying initiatives. And he was about to receive a text that would bring the full weight of his office to Jefferson High School within the hour. Within minutes of sending that text message, Maya's phone buzzed with a response that made her heart skip a beat. On my way, stay strong, sweetheart. Governor Daniel Richardson was in the middle of a budget meeting with state legislators when his phone vibrated against the mahogany conference table. He rarely answered personal calls during official business, but something about the timing made him glance at the screen. When he saw Maya's name, everything else became secondary. Daniel had been more than an uncle to Maya since her parents' death 8 years ago. He was her godfather, her mentor, and the person who never missed a school play, science fair, or parent-teacher conference. Despite his demanding schedule as governor, he made Maya a priority in ways that often surprised his staff and security detail. The relationship between Daniel and his mother, Grandma Rose, was complicated by geography and his political responsibilities, but his love for Maya was unwavering. He'd grown up in the same small apartment where Maya now lived, understanding intimately the struggles of making ends meet on limited resources. His journey from that cramped space on Elm Street to the governor's mansion was a source of inspiration. He hoped to share with his niece. Reading Maya's text, Daniel felt a familiar protective instinct surge through him. He'd been 15 once, navigating the cruel hierarchies of high school while wearing second-hand clothes and carrying the weight of family expectations. The difference was that Maya faced these challenges with grace and dignity that far exceeded anything he'd possessed at her age. "Gentlemen, we'll need to continue this discussion later," Daniel announced, standing abruptly from the conference table. His chief of staff, Robert Chen, looked up with concern. "Governor, we have the Education Committee meeting in 30 minutes, and the press conference about the anti-bullying legislation is scheduled for this afternoon." Daniel paused, a slight smile crossing his face. "Actually, Robert, I think we're about to have a real-world test of that anti-bullying legislation. Cancel my afternoon appointments. We're going to Jefferson High School." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The governor's security team, led by Agent Patricia Wells, immediately went into high alert. Unscheduled visits required extensive coordination with local law enforcement and school administration. But Daniel's tone left no room for negotiation. "This is a family emergency," he explained to Agent Wells as they walked briskly toward the elevator. "My niece is in trouble, and she needs me there now." Back at Jefferson High School, the cafeteria, confrontation had escalated beyond what teachers could manage with simple intervention. Principal Margaret Foster, no relation to Amanda Foster, despite the shared surname, had been called to the scene after multiple students reported the incident. To the front office, Maya stood her ground as Brittany and her followers continued their verbal assault. Other students had begun taking sides, with some defending Maya and others joining in the mockery. The situation was rapidly deteriorating into something that could have lasting consequences for everyone involved. "You know what your problem is, Maya," Brittany continued, emboldened by the attention she was receiving. "You act like being poor is something to be proud of, like wearing rags makes you special somehow, but it doesn't. It just makes you pathetic." Zoe Martinez finally spoke up, her voice carrying across the now silent cafeteria. "You're the pathetic one, Brittany. Maya has more class in her handmade dress than you have in your entire designer wardrobe." "Oh, great," Amanda Foster rolled her eyes. "Now, the other charity case is defending her." The comment about Zoe being a charity case was particularly cruel, as Zoe's family had indeed struggled financially since her father's construction business failed during the economic downturn. Maya felt her protective instincts kick in, knowing that Zoe was defending her at personal cost. "Leave Zoe out of this," Maya said firmly. "If you have a problem with me, focus on me." Principal Foster finally reached the group, her authoritative presence immediately changing the dynamics of the confrontation. A veteran educator with 30 years of experience, she'd seen countless conflicts, but recognized this one had the potential to explode beyond the school's walls. "What's going on here?" Principal Foster demanded, her voice cutting through the tension. "Maya was being disrespectful to us," Brittany said quickly, attempting to control the narrative. "She made rude comments about our families and our clothes." Several students who had witnessed the entire exchange began speaking at once, offering conflicting versions of events. The chaos made it difficult for Principal Foster to determine exactly what had transpired, but she could see that Maya was visibly shaken while trying to maintain her composure. "Everyone return to your seats," Principal Foster commanded. "Maya, Brittany, Jessica, Amanda, and Sarah, you'll all come with me to the office. We're going to sort this out properly." As the group prepared to leave the cafeteria, Maya's phone buzzed again. This time, the message made her eyes widen in disbelief. "Security detail is coordinating with your school. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Don't let anyone intimidate you." Maya realized her uncle wasn't just coming as a concerned family member. He was coming as the governor of California, with all the resources and authority that position entailed. The weight of what was about to happen began to settle in her mind. Meanwhile, Agent Wells was coordinating with the California Highway Patrol to clear traffic routes between the state capitol and Jefferson High School. The governor's motorcade consisted of 3 black SUVs, 2 police motorcycles, and a command vehicle equipped with communication systems that kept Daniel connected to his staff throughout the journey. "Sir," Agent Wells said through the intercom system, "I've contacted Jefferson High School's administration. Principal Foster is aware of your arrival and has secured the main office area. Local police are establishing a perimeter to manage any media attention." Daniel nodded, his mind focused entirely on Maya and what she must be experiencing. He remembered his own encounters with bullies during high school, the helpless feeling of being targeted for circumstances beyond his control. But Maya wouldn't face this alone, not while he had the power to intervene. The governor's communications director, Lisa Park, was frantically trying to understand the implications of this unscheduled school visit. If word leaked to the media before they could control the narrative, it could create complications for Daniel's anti-bullying legislative agenda. "Governor," Lisa said through the secure phone line, "we should prepare a statement in case reporters show up at the school. How do you want to frame this visit?" "We frame it as exactly what it is," Daniel replied without hesitation. "A family member responding to a family emergency. If that emergency happens to illustrate the need for stronger anti-bullying measures in our schools, then so be it." Back in Principal Foster's office, the 5 students sat in uncomfortable silence while she reviewed witness statements from other students who had observed the cafeteria incident. The accounts were remarkably consistent. Brittany and her group had initiated the confrontation with deliberate cruelty, while Maya had defended herself with dignity. "Brittany," Principal Foster said, her tone serious, "the accounts I'm hearing suggest that you and your friends deliberately targeted Maya with hurtful comments about her clothing and family situation. Is this accurate?" "We were just having a conversation," Brittany said defensively. "It's not our fault she got all sensitive about it. Calling someone's clothes embarrassing and comparing them to a homeless person isn't having a conversation," Principal Foster replied sternly. "It's harassment, and it violates our school's anti-bullying policy." Jessica Chen shifted uncomfortably in her chair. "We didn't mean anything by it. Maya just took it the wrong way." Taking offense to deliberate insults isn't taking something the wrong way, Principal Foster continued. It's a natural human response to being treated with disrespect. Maya sat quietly during this exchange, occasionally glancing at her phone to check for updates from her uncle. She felt a mixture of anticipation and anxiety about what was about to unfold. Part of her wanted to handle this situation independently, to prove she could stand up for herself without assistance. but another part of her was grateful that someone with real authority was finally going to witness the treatment she'd endured for months. At 1:15 p.m., exactly 19 minutes after his last text message, Governor Daniel Richardson's motorcade pulled into the Jefferson High School parking lot. The sight of 3 black SUVs, police motorcycles, and uniformed security personnel immediately attracted attention from students and staff throughout the campus. Agent Wells stepped out of the lead vehicle and spoke briefly with local police officers who had secured the area. She then opened the rear door of the second SUV, and Governor Daniel Richardson emerged, his presence commanding immediate respect from everyone in the vicinity. Daniel Richardson looked every inch the part of a governor, tall, distinguished, wearing a perfectly tailored navy suit that spoke of authority and success. But as he walked toward the school's main entrance, his expression revealed something deeper than political gravitas. This was a man on a personal mission, and nothing would prevent him from reaching his destination. Principal Foster's secretary, Mrs. Rodriguez, looked up from her desk to see the governor of California walking through the front doors of Jefferson High School, flanked by his security detail and followed by what appeared to be a small army of official personnel. "Mrs. Rodriguez," Daniel said with a warm smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, "I believe you have my niece, Maya Richardson, in the principal's office. I'm here to see her." The silence in Principal Foster's office was deafening when Mrs. Rodriguez's voice crackled through the intercom. "Principal Foster, Governor Richardson is here to see his niece." Brittany Walsh's face drained of color. Jessica Chen's mouth fell open. Amanda Foster and Sarah Kim exchanged panicked glances, suddenly understanding that Maya Richardson wasn't just any student they could torment without consequences. "Did she just say Governor Richardson?" Amanda whispered, her voice barely audible. Maya felt a surge of emotions, relief, pride, and a touch of anxiety about how this moment would unfold. She'd never used her uncle's position for personal advantage, and even now she wondered if this was the right approach. But seeing the shock on her tormentors' faces, she realized that sometimes power needed to be wielded to protect the vulnerable. Principal Foster stood immediately, smoothing her blazer and checking her appearance in the small mirror behind her desk. In 30 years of education, she'd never had a sitting governor visit her school, especially not for a disciplinary matter involving his family member. "Girls, please remain seated," Principal Foster instructed, though her own composure was clearly shaken. "I'll be right back." She stepped into the outer office where Governor Richardson waited, his security detail positioned strategically throughout the small space. Agent Wells had efficiently assessed potential threats and escape routes while maintaining a professional demeanor that didn't alarm the school staff. "Governor Richardson," Principal Foster extended her hand. "I'm Margaret Foster, the principal. Here, I understand you're concerned about your niece." Daniel shook her hand firmly, his political smile replaced by genuine concern. "Principal Foster, thank you for accommodating this unexpected visit. Yes, I'm here about Maya. She sent me a message indicating she was having some difficulties with other students." "We're currently addressing the situation," Principal Foster replied carefully. "There was an incident in the cafeteria involving verbal harassment. I have Maya and the other students involved in my office right now." "Verbal harassment," Daniel repeated, his tone sharpening slightly. "Can you be more specific about what kind of harassment my 15-year-old niece experienced?" Principal Foster gestured toward her office door. "Perhaps it would be best if you heard directly from the students involved. I think you'll find Maya handled herself with remarkable maturity under difficult circumstances." As they walked back into the office, the 4 girls who had tormented Maya seemed to shrink in their chairs. The presence of the governor of California transformed the dynamic completely. What had been a school disciplinary matter was now something much more significant. Daniel's eyes immediately found Maya, and his expression softened with unmistakable love and concern. Despite his position and power at that moment, he was simply an uncle worried about his niece. "Maya, sweetheart," he said gently, moving to stand beside her chair. "Are you okay?" Maya nodded, fighting back tears that threatened to spill. "I'm okay, Uncle Daniel. I couldn't take it anymore." Daniel placed a protective hand on Maya's shoulder before turning his attention to the other students. His gubernatorial presence filled the small office, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "I understand there was some discussion about my niece's clothing," Daniel said, his tone measured but unmistakably serious. "I'd like to hear exactly what was said." Brittany Walsh, who had been so confident and cruel just an hour earlier, now struggled to find her voice. "Governor Richardson, sir. I think there might have been some misunderstanding." "I don't think there was any misunderstanding," Daniel replied firmly. "From what I'm told, you made deliberate comments about Maya's appearance, her family's financial situation, and her character. Is that accurate?" The room fell into uncomfortable silence. Jessica Chen stared at her hands, while Amanda Foster, he seemed to be calculating how this incident might affect her own family's social standing. Sarah Kim looked like she wanted to disappear entirely. We didn't mean..." Brittany started, but Daniel interrupted her with a raised hand. "Let me share something with you girls," Daniel said, his voice taking on the cadence he used for important speeches. "The clothes Maya wears are made by her grandmother, my mother, who worked for 40 years as a seamstress in this city. Every stitch represents decades of skill, hours of love, and a tradition of taking pride in one's work regardless of economic circumstances." He paused, allowing his words to sink in before continuing. "When you mock Maya's clothes, you're not just attacking a 15-year-old girl. You're attacking the dignity of honest work, the value of family love, and the character of someone who chooses substance over superficiality." Maya felt tears starting to flow, but these were different from the tears of humiliation she'd fought. Earlier, these were tears of gratitude and validation. Someone with real power was articulating what she'd been unable to express herself. "Moreover," Daniel continued, his voice growing stronger, "as governor of California, I've made anti-bullying legislation a cornerstone of my education policy. What happened here today isn't just a school disciplinary matter. It's a perfect example of why we need systemic change in how we address harassment in our educational institutions." Principal Foster realized she was witnessing something unprecedented. This wasn't just a family member defending a child. This was a governor using a personal incident to illustrate broader policy implications. Agent Wells, standing near the door, spoke quietly into her radio. "Command, the governor is conducting an impromptu education policy discussion. We may need to extend our timeline here." "Governor Richardson," Principal Foster interjected carefully, "how would you like us to proceed with the disciplinary action? Our standard protocol for harassment incidents involves suspension and mandatory counseling." Daniel looked down at Maya, who was wiping tears from her cheeks, but sitting straighter in her chair. "Maya, what do you think would be appropriate consequences?" Maya considered the question seriously. She could have demanded harsh punishment, used her uncle's position to ensure these girls faced severe repercussions. Instead, she chose a different path. "I think they should understand what it feels like to be judged for things beyond their control," Maya said quietly. "Maybe they should spend time with people who don't have the advantages they take for granted." Daniel smiled proudly at his niece's response. "That's a very mature perspective, Maya. Principal Foster, I'd like to propose something beyond standard disciplinary measures." "I'm listening," Principal Foster replied, genuinely curious about where this was heading. "These 4 students will spend the next month volunteering at community organizations that serve families facing economic hardship," Daniel announced. They'll work with children who wear donated clothes, families who struggle to afford basic necessities, and individuals who understand the value of making something beautiful from limited resources. Brittany Walsh finally found her voice, though it trembled with anxiety. "Governor Richardson, sir, we really didn't mean to cause such a big problem. We're sorry if we hurt Maya's feelings." "You're not sorry you hurt Maya's feelings," Daniel replied bluntly. "You're sorry you got caught by someone with the power to hold you accountable. There's a significant difference." He turned to address all four girls directly, his tone becoming more educational than punitive. "Let me explain something about privilege and responsibility. You girls come from families with financial resources, social connections, and opportunities that many people in this community will never have. With those advantages comes an obligation to lift others up, not tear them down." Jessica Chen raised her hand tentatively, like a student seeking permission to speak. "Governor, what if our parents don't want us to do community service?" Daniel's expression became stern. "Then your parents and I will have a conversation about the values they're teaching their children, because I can guarantee you that attacking vulnerable students will not be tolerated in California schools while I'm governor." The implicit threat was clear. This incident could escalate far beyond school discipline if the families didn't cooperate with the proposed resolution. Maya watched this exchange with growing amazement. Her uncle wasn't just defending her. He was using this moment to teach these girls lessons about empathy, responsibility, and the consequences of their actions. "Principal Foster," Daniel continued, "I'd also like to discuss implementing a more comprehensive anti-bullying program here at Jefferson High. This incident suggests that current policies aren't sufficient to protect students like Maya." "I completely agree," Principal Foster replied eagerly. "We'd welcome any resources or guidance the state can provide." Agent Wells approached discreetly and whispered something in Daniel's ear. He nodded and turned back to the group. "I need to return to the capital for other obligations, but this matter isn't closed," Daniel announced. "Maya, would you like me to drive you home so you can spend the afternoon with your grandmother?" Maya nodded gratefully. "Yes, please. I'd like that very much." As Daniel prepared to leave with Maya, he addressed the four girls one final time. "Ladies, you have an opportunity here to learn from this experience and become better people. I strongly suggest you take advantage of it, because if incidents like this continue, the consequences will be far more severe than community service." The governor's motorcade departure from Jefferson High School created quite a spectacle, with students and staff gathering at windows to watch Maya Richardson leave school in the Governor of California's official vehicle. As they drove away, Maya finally allowed herself to process everything that had happened. Her uncle had transformed her worst day into a moment of empowerment and justice. "Thank you, Uncle Daniel," she said quietly, as they drove through downtown Sacramento. "Thank you for trusting me to help," he replied. "And Maya, I'm proud of how you handled yourself today. You showed more class and dignity than those girls could ever hope to possess." The news of Governor Richardson's dramatic appearance at Jefferson High School spread through Sacramento like wildfire. By evening, local news stations were reporting on the incident, though the details remained carefully controlled by the governor's communications team. Meanwhile, in the Richardson family's apartment on Elm Street, Maya sat at the kitchen table with her grandmother, recounting the day's events while Grandma Rose alters a dress for a neighbor's wedding. "So he just walked right into that school like he owned the place?" Grandma Rose asked, her weathered hands never pausing in their precise stitching. "Grandma, you should have seen their faces," Maya said, her voice filled with a mixture of satisfaction and disbelief. Brittany looked like she'd seen a ghost. They had no idea who they were messing with. Grandma Rose set down her needle and looked at her granddaughter with eyes that held decades of wisdom. "Maya, honey, your uncle did right by you today. But remember, not everyone has a governor in their family. You can't always rely on someone else's power to solve your problems. Maya nodded thoughtfully. I know, Grandma, but I'd been dealing with their comments for months. I tried ignoring them, tried standing up for myself, but they just kept getting worse. Sometimes you need backup, Grandma Rose acknowledged. Lord knows I could have used some when I was facing discrimination in the garment factories, all those years ago. The difference is, you got to see justice served. That's not something everyone gets to experience. The conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. Maya opened it to find Zoe Martinez standing in the hallway, her eyes bright with excitement and concern. Maya! Oh my God, I had to come see if you were okay, Zoe said, stepping inside. The entire school is talking about what happened. Some people are saying your uncle threatened to shut down the school. Others are saying he's going to have those girls arrested. Maya laughed for the first time that day. Nothing that dramatic. He just made sure they understood there would be consequences for their actions. Zoe sat down at the kitchen table, accepting a cup of tea from Grandma Rose. You know what the crazy part is. I heard Amanda Foster's mom is freaking out because she's worried this is going to affect their family's reputation. And Jessica Chen's parents apparently called the school, demanding to know why their daughter is being persecuted by the governor. Persecuted? Grandma Rose raised an eyebrow. That girl spent months persecuting Maya, and now they want to play victim? That's exactly what I thought, Zoe agreed. But get this, I also heard that some of the other students are really supportive of what happened. Apparently, Brittany and her group have been targeting other kids too, and people are glad. Someone finally stood up to them. Maya felt a wave of validation hearing this. She'd sometimes wondered if she was being too sensitive, if the comments weren't as harmful as they felt. Learning that other students had been victims too confirmed that this was a larger problem that needed addressing. Back at the governor's mansion, Daniel Richardson was in his study, reviewing the day's events with his senior staff. The incident at Jefferson High had created both opportunities and challenges for his administration. The initial public response is overwhelmingly positive, reported Lisa Park, his communications director. Parents across the state are praising you for taking a personal stand against bullying. Social media is lighting up with stories from people who experienced similar harassment in school. Robert Chen, his chief of staff, was more cautious. Governor, while the public supports your actions, we need to be careful about how this plays out. The Walsh family has significant political connections, and Brittany's father is a major donor to several conservative PACs. They could try to spin this as government overreach. Daniel leaned back in his leather chair, considering the implications. Robert, let them try. If standing up for a 15-year-old girl who was being bullied is considered government overreach, then I'll gladly be guilty of that charge. There's also the matter of media attention, Lisa continued. We've had interview requests from 3 major networks, and Good Morning America wants Maya to appear as a guest to discuss her experience. Absolutely not, Daniel said firmly. Maya is a minor who's been through enough today. We protect her privacy above all else. If anyone wants to discuss anti-bullying policy, they can talk to me. Agent Wells, who had remained silent during the discussion, finally spoke up. Sir, there's another consideration. We've received several messages through official channels from parents of other students at Jefferson High. Some are requesting similar interventions for their children who are experiencing bullying. Daniel rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of unintended consequences. We can't personally intervene in every bullying case in California, but maybe we can use this momentum to push through more comprehensive legislation. The next morning, at Jefferson High School, the atmosphere was noticeably different. Students whispered in hallways about the previous day's events, while teachers and administrators moved with heightened awareness of potential bullying situations. Principal Foster had called an emergency faculty meeting before classes began. addressing the need for increased vigilance and proactive intervention in student conflicts. Yesterday's incident has highlighted gaps in our current anti-bullying protocols, she announced to the assembled staff. We cannot wait for situations to escalate to the point where external intervention becomes necessary. In her first period, English class, Maya found herself the center of attention in ways both positive and negative. Some students approached her with newfound respect and support, while others seemed to view her with suspicion or resentment. Marcus Thompson, a junior, who had never spoken to Maya before, stopped by her desk before class began. "Hey Maya, I just wanted to say I'm glad someone finally stood up to Brittany's crew. They've been making comments about my sneakers all semester." "Thanks, Marcus," Maya replied. "I'm sorry they've been bothering you too." "Yeah. Well, not all of us have governors for uncles," Marcus said with a grin. "But maybe now they'll think twice before picking on people." However, not all reactions were supportive. During lunch, Maya overheard a group of students discussing the incident with less enthusiasm. "It's not fair that Maya gets special treatment just because of who her family is," complained Trevor Walsh, Brittany's younger brother. "My sister is facing suspension and community service because the governor decided to throw his weight around." "Maybe your sister shouldn't have been such a bully," replied Carmen Rodriguez, a sophomore who had witnessed the cafeteria confrontation. "Maya didn't ask for special treatment. She defended herself when your sister attacked her." The debate highlighted a complex issue that Maya hadn't fully considered: the perception that she had used family connections to solve a problem that other students face without such resources. During her afternoon study hall, Maya was called to Principal Foster's office again. This time, she found Ms. Jennifer Walsh, Brittany's mother, waiting alongside Principal Foster and a man Maya didn't recognize. "Maya, this is Ms. Walsh and Mr. Bradley from the school district office," Principal Foster explained. "They wanted to speak with you about yesterday's incident." Ms. Walsh was an impeccably dressed woman who radiated the kind of confidence that comes from social privilege and financial security. Her expression was carefully controlled, but Maya could sense underlying anger and frustration. "Maya, I want you to know that my family respects your uncle's position and his concern for your well-being," Ms. Walsh began, her tone artificially pleasant. "However, I believe there may have been some misunderstandings about what happened yesterday." Maya felt her defensive instincts activate. "What kind of misunderstandings?" "Well, teenagers sometimes misinterpret social interactions," Ms. Walsh continued. "What might seem like teasing or joking around can sometimes be taken more seriously than intended." Mr. Bradley, the district representative, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Maya realized that Ms. Walsh was trying to minimize her daughter's actions while avoiding direct confrontation with the governor's family. "Ms. Walsh," Maya said carefully, "your daughter called my clothes embarrassing, compared me to a homeless person, and said I was pathetic for being proud of my grandmother's work. That wasn't teasing or joking, that was deliberate cruelty." "I understand you feel that way," Ms. Walsh replied, "but Brittany maintains that the situation was blown out of proportion. She's willing to apologize if that would help resolve this matter quietly." Maya recognized the subtext. The Walsh family wanted to avoid the community service and publicity that came with Governor Richardson's intervention. They were hoping Maya would accept a simple apology and allow the matter to fade away. "I appreciate that Brittany wants to apologize," Maya said, choosing her words carefully, "but apologies don't undo months of harassment. They don't change the fact that she made those comments in front of the entire cafeteria to humiliate me." Principal Foster spoke up, sensing the tension in the room. "Maya, no one is asking you to accept anything less than what you and your uncle agreed upon yesterday. The community service requirement stands, along with the other disciplinary measures." Ms. Walsh's composure cracked slightly. Principal Foster, with all due respect, having my daughter work in homeless shelters seems excessive. For what amounts to a teenage disagreement. It's not excessive for someone who mocked another student for looking homeless, Maya replied firmly. Maybe spending time with people who actually face those challenges will help Brittany understand why her words were so hurtful. The meeting concluded without any changes to the agreed-upon consequences, but Maya left with a deeper understanding of the social dynamics at play. The incident had created ripple effects throughout the community, affecting not just the students involved, but their families and the broader school environment. That evening, Maya received a text message from her uncle. "How was your day, sweetheart? Any problems?" She typed back, "Some people aren't happy about yesterday, but I can handle it. Thank you for believing in me." His response came quickly. "I'll always believe in you, Maya. And remember, standing up for what's right isn't always popular, but it's always necessary." 3 weeks after the cafeteria incident, Maya was surprised to receive an unexpected visitor at Jefferson High School. Dr. Rebecca Martinez, the state's Director of Educational Policy, had arrived to conduct follow-up interviews as part of a comprehensive study on bullying intervention strategies. "Maya, thank you for agreeing to speak with me," Dr. Martinez said, as they sat in a quiet corner of the school library. "Your experience has become a case study that could influence anti-bullying policies across California." Maya shifted uncomfortably in her chair. "I never intended for this to become such a big deal. I just wanted the harassment to stop." "That's exactly why your case is so valuable," Dr. Martinez explained. "You represent thousands of students who face similar challenges but don't have access to the kind of intervention you received. We're trying to understand how to replicate the positive outcomes without requiring gubernatorial involvement." The conversation was interrupted when Brittany Walsh appeared at their table, looking notably different from the confident bully who had tormented Maya weeks earlier. Her designer clothes had been replaced with simple jeans and a plain sweater, and her usual entourage was nowhere to be seen. "Maya, can I talk to you for a minute?" Brittany asked, her voice lacking its former arrogance. Dr. Martinez excused herself, giving the girls privacy while remaining within earshot in case intervention became necessary. "I know you probably don't want to hear from me," Brittany began, sitting across from Maya, "but I needed to tell you something. The community service your uncle assigned, it's been eye-opening." Maya studied Brittany's face, looking for signs of manipulation or insincerity. Instead, she saw something she'd never observed before: genuine humility and what appeared to be the beginning of self-awareness. "I've been working at the Sacramento Food Bank," Brittany continued, "helping families who are struggling to feed their children. Yesterday, I met a little girl who was so excited about a donated dress that she twirled around the entire clothing distribution area. It was handmade, probably by someone's grandmother, and she treated it like it was the most beautiful thing in the world." Maya felt her defensive walls beginning to lower slightly. "What's your point, Brittany?" "My point is that I've been an idiot," Brittany said bluntly. "I've been so focused on brand names and price tags that I forgot clothes are supposed to make people feel good about themselves. That little girl felt beautiful in her donated dress, and I tried to make you feel ugly in clothes that were made with love." The admission was unexpected, and Maya found herself reassessing her previous assumptions about Brittany's capacity for growth and change. "The other volunteers at the food bank told me about their own struggles," Brittany continued. "There's a woman there who lost her job and had to move in with her elderly mother. She makes beautiful jewelry from recycled materials to sell at farmers' markets, trying to rebuild her life. Another volunteer is a teenager whose family immigrated here with nothing, and she's working 3 jobs while maintaining a 4.0 GPA. Maya listened quietly, recognizing that Brittany was having the kind of awakening that couldn't be forced or faked. I realized that I've been living in a bubble, Brittany said. My biggest worry was whether my outfit matched or if I had the latest handbag. Meanwhile, there are people our age dealing with real problems. Food insecurity, housing instability, discrimination. I feel ashamed of how I treated you. Feeling ashamed is a start, Maya replied carefully. But what matters is what you do with that feeling. Brittany nodded earnestly. I want to do better. Not just because I'm required to do community service, but because I finally understand why it matters. I've asked to continue volunteering at the food bank even after my assignment is completed. Maya felt a cautious sense of hope. What about Jessica, Amanda, and Sarah? Are they having similar realizations? Brittany's expression became more complicated. Jessica is doing her service at a homeless shelter, and I think it's affecting her the same way. Amanda is working at a community center teaching art to underprivileged kids, and she seems to be enjoying it. But Sarah... Brittany paused, looking uncomfortable. Sarah is just going through the motions. She's completing her hours at a senior center, but she spends most of the time complaining about being there. Change has to come from within, Maya observed. You can't force someone to develop empathy. Dr. Martinez returned to the table, having observed the interaction with professional interest. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important. Actually, Maya said, surprising herself, I think Brittany was sharing some insights that might be valuable for your study. Over the next hour, Dr. Martinez interviewed both girls about their experiences. Maya as the victim of harassment and Brittany as someone working to understand and correct her behavior. The conversation revealed layers of complexity that standard anti-bullying programs rarely addressed. Brittany, what do you think would have prevented this situation from occurring in the first place? Dr. Martinez asked, honestly. Education about privilege and empathy starting much earlier, Brittany replied. I've been surrounded by wealth and status symbols my entire life. No one ever taught me to question whether those things actually matter or how my attitudes might hurt other people. And Maya, what do you think schools need to do differently to protect students like yourself? Maya considered the question carefully. Teachers and administrators need to take harassment seriously from the beginning, not wait until it escalates. They also need to understand that bullying isn't always physical. Emotional and social harassment can be just as damaging. Dr. Martinez nodded, taking detailed notes. Both of your perspectives will be invaluable as we develop new protocols. Maya, your uncle's intervention was effective, but we need systemic solutions that don't require political connections. After Dr. Martinez left, Maya and Brittany found themselves in an unexpected conversation about their futures and how this experience had changed their perspectives. I used to think I wanted to study business and take over my father's car dealerships, Brittany admitted. But now I'm considering social work or non-profit management. I want to help people instead of just making money. That's a complete 180 from where you were a month ago, Maya observed. I know it sounds crazy, but this experience showed me who I really want to be, Brittany said. I don't want to be the person who tears others down to feel better about myself. I want to be someone who builds people up. Maya felt a surprising sense of satisfaction hearing this. Her uncle's intervention had accomplished more than just stopping the harassment. It had actually created positive change in one of her tormentors. What about you? Brittany asked. Has this whole experience changed your plans? Maya smiled thoughtfully. I've always wanted to study fashion design, but now I'm thinking about it differently. I want to create beautiful, affordable clothing that makes people feel confident regardless of their budget. Maybe I can help change the culture that says expensive equals better. Their conversation was interrupted by Zoe Martinez, who approached their table with obvious surprise at seeing Maya and Brittany talking civilly. Am I missing something here? Zoe asked, sitting down cautiously. Brittany was apologizing and sharing what she's learned from her community service, Maya explained. Zoe studied Brittany skeptically. And you believe her? I think people can change if they're willing to do the work, Maya replied. Brittany seems to be putting in that effort. I understand if you don't trust me yet, Brittany said to Zoe. I haven't given you any reason to. But I'm hoping that over time, my actions will show that this change is real. Later that afternoon, Maya received a call from her uncle while walking home from school. How are things going, sweetheart? Daniel asked. Any updates on the situation? At school? Actually, yes, Maya said, recounting her conversation with Brittany and Dr. Martinez's visit. I think your intervention is having the kind of impact you hoped for. I'm proud of how you're handling this, Maya, Daniel replied. It would have been easy to hold grudges or refuse to accept Brittany's attempts to change. Your willingness to give her a chance shows remarkable maturity. Grandma Rose always says that holding on to anger hurts the person carrying it more than anyone else, Maya said. If Brittany is genuinely trying to become a better person, I want to support that. That's exactly the kind of attitude that will make you an effective leader someday, Daniel said. Speaking of which, I have some news. The State Education Committee wants to invite you to testify about your experience when we present the new anti-bullying legislation to the legislature. Maya felt a surge of nervousness mixed with excitement. Testify in front of the whole legislature? Only if you're comfortable with it, Daniel assured her. But your story has already inspired policy changes. Sharing it publicly could help protect other students facing similar situations. As Maya walked up the stairs to her apartment, she reflected on how dramatically her life had changed in just 3 weeks. What had started as one of the worst days of her high school career had evolved into an opportunity to influence state policy and possibly help countless other students. Grandma Rose was waiting in the kitchen with dinner already prepared, her famous chicken and dumplings that always made Maya feel loved and secure. How was your day, baby girl? Grandma Rose asked, studying Maya's face for signs of stress or happiness. Complicated but good, Maya replied, settling into her chair and beginning to share the day's events. I think I'm starting to understand that sometimes the worst things that happen to us can become the most important things we do for others. Grandma Rose smiled proudly, reaching across to squeeze Maya's hand. Now that's wisdom worth more than any designer dress could ever be. 6 months after the cafeteria incident that changed everything, Maya Richardson stood before the California State Legislature, her hands steady despite the magnitude of the moment. The ornate chambers buzzed with quiet anticipation as lawmakers, advocates, and media representatives prepared to hear testimony on Assembly Bill 2847, the comprehensive anti-bullying legislation inspired by her experience. Maya wore a dress that Grandma Rose had spent weeks perfecting, a deep emerald creation that combined traditional tailoring techniques with contemporary design elements. Every stitch represented not just hours of labor, but a statement about the value of handmade craftsmanship and the dignity of honest work. Honorable members of the legislature, Maya began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's sound system. 6 months ago, I was just another high school student trying to navigate the challenges of adolescence while dealing with harassment from classmates who judged me based on my family's economic circumstances. Governor Daniel Richardson sat in the gallery, watching his niece with undisguised pride. Beside him sat Grandma Rose, who had insisted on witnessing this moment despite her usual preference for staying out of the public eye. The clothes I wear are made by my grandmother, a woman who worked for 40 years in Sacramento's garment industry, Maya continued. When other students mocked these clothes, they weren't just attacking fabric and thread. They were attacking the love, skill, and heritage that each piece represents. In the audience, Brittany Walsh sat with her parents listening intently, The transformation in Brittany over the past months had been remarkable. Her continued volunteer work at the Sacramento Food Bank had evolved into a leadership role, and she was now organizing clothing drives specifically focused on collecting handmade and gently used items for families in need. The intervention that occurred at my school was effective because it addressed not just the immediate harassment, but the underlying attitudes that enabled it, Maya testified. The community service requirements didn't just punish the students involved. They educated them about the lives and struggles of people they had never bothered to understand. Dr. Rebecca Martinez, now serving as the lead advisor on the anti-bullying legislation, had incorporated lessons learned from Maya's case into a comprehensive framework that other schools could implement without requiring gubernatorial intervention. Assembly Bill 2847 isn't just about stopping bullying, it's about creating educational environments where differences are celebrated rather than attacked, Maya explained to the legislators. It requires schools to implement empathy education, provide meaningful consequences that focus on rehabilitation rather than just punishment, and create support systems for both victims and perpetrators of harassment. As Maya continued her testimony, she caught sight of several familiar faces in the audience. Marcus Thompson, the student who had thanked her for standing up to Brittany's group, was there representing Jefferson High's newly formed anti-bullying student coalition. Zoe Martinez sat beside him, having become the coalition's co-president and Maya's closest collaborator in developing peer support programs. The most important lesson I've learned from this experience is that change is possible when we combine accountability with education, Maya said, addressing a question from Assemblyman Rodriguez about long-term effectiveness. Brittany Walsh, one of the students who harassed me, has become one of our most effective advocates for treating all students with dignity and respect. The hearing continued for 2 hours, with testimony from educators, parents, and policy experts. When it concluded, the committee voted unanimously to advance the legislation to a full-floor vote, virtually guaranteeing its passage. Outside the Capitol building, Maya was surrounded by reporters and advocacy groups seeking interviews and statements. Governor Richardson's communications team had prepared her for this attention, but she handled the questions with a poise that seemed natural rather than coached. Maya, how does it feel to know that your experience will help protect students across California? Asked a reporter from the Sacramento Bee. It feels like something positive came from something really painful, Maya replied thoughtfully. I wouldn't wish harassment on anyone, but if sharing my story prevents other students from going through what I experienced, then it was worth it. Dr. Martinez approached as the media scrum dispersed. Maya, I wanted you to know that we've already received implementation requests from school districts in 12 other states. Your testimony today will have a national impact. Later that evening, the Richardson family gathered at Grandma Rose's apartment for a celebration dinner. The small kitchen table was crowded with Daniel, Maya, Grandma Rose, and surprisingly, Brittany Walsh, who had become an unexpected but welcome addition to their extended family circle. I still can't believe everything that's happened, Brittany said, helping Grandma Rose serve her famous peach cobbler. 6 months ago, I was a completely different person. I'm not proud of who I was, but I'm grateful for the chance to become someone better. Growth requires discomfort, Grandma Rose observed, her eyes twinkling with wisdom earned through decades of experience. You can't become who you're meant to be without letting go of who you used to be. Daniel raised his coffee cup in a toast. To Maya, for having the courage to stand up for herself and the grace to forgive those who wronged her, and to all of us, for learning that our worst moments can become catalysts for our greatest achievements. As the evening wound down, Maya found herself on the small balcony overlooking Elm Street, reflecting on the journey that had brought her to this moment. The girl who had been humiliated in a high school cafeteria had become a voice for students. Across the nation, Brittany joined her on the balcony, both girls looking out at the city lights of Sacramento. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if your uncle hadn't been the governor?" Brittany asked. Maya considered the question seriously. "I think about that sometimes. Maybe the harassment would have continued. Maybe I would have transferred schools or just suffered in silence. But I also think that eventually someone would have stood up. It might have taken longer, but I believe truth and justice find a way to surface." "I'm glad it happened the way it did," Brittany said quietly. "Not just because it stopped my terrible behavior, but because it gave me the chance to become someone I actually like. The person I was 6 months ago, I wouldn't want to be friends with her. The person you are now is someone worth being." "Friends with," Maya replied, meaning every word. 3 weeks later, Maya received news that would cap off an already extraordinary year. The Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising had not only accepted her application, but had awarded her a full scholarship based on her portfolio and her advocacy work in promoting inclusive fashion education. At Jefferson High School, the changes implemented through the new anti-bullying protocols had created a noticeably different atmosphere. The peer mediation program that Maya and Zoe had helped design was resolving conflicts before they escalated. The empathy education curriculum was helping students understand the impact of their words and actions on others. Brittany had established a Handmade with Love fashion show that celebrated student-created clothing, regardless of whether it was sewn by grandmothers, purchased at thrift stores, or designed in art classes. The event had become so popular that it was now an annual tradition, with proceeds supporting scholarships for students from low-income families. On graduation day, Maya walked across the stage to receive her diploma, wearing a dress that represented her entire journey, a collaborative creation that combined Grandma Rose's traditional techniques with contemporary design elements that Maya had learned through online courses and workshops. Governor Richardson watched from the audience as Maya was recognized not just as valedictorian, but as the recipient of the first annual Courage in Leadership Award, established specifically to honor her contributions to creating a more inclusive school environment. In her valedictory speech, Maya addressed her classmates with words that captured the essence of her transformation from victim to advocate. 4 years ago, I entered these halls as a shy girl who just wanted to blend in and avoid conflict, Maya said, her voice carrying to every corner of the packed auditorium. I leave as someone who understands that our differences aren't weaknesses to hide. They're strengths to celebrate. The clothes we wear, the families we come from, the challenges we face, these things don't define our worth. How we treat each other, how we stand up for what's right, how we choose to grow from our mistakes, that's what defines us. As Maya concluded her speech and prepared to begin the next chapter of her life in Los Angeles, she carried with her the knowledge that sometimes the worst day of your life can become the beginning of your most important work. The shy girl who had been mocked for her handmade clothes had found her voice, used it to protect others, and in the process discovered that true strength comes not from having power over others, but from using whatever power you have to lift others up. Grandma Rose's stitches had always been strong, but the threads that connected Maya's experience to lasting change would prove to be even stronger, weaving together a legacy of courage, forgiveness, and the understanding that everyone deserves to be treated with dignity and respect, regardless of what they wear or where they come from. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.